Welcome to Roots and Roofs, where we explore the intersection of motherhood and entrepreneurship in the real estate world. I am your host, Mackenzie Shelton. Join us as we dive into the unique journey of balancing family life with owning a thriving real estate business. Each episode, we will uncover inspiring stories, practical tips, mindset conversations, and expert insights from others who are carving their paths in the real estate industry. Whether you are a seasoned realtor, a prospective buyer, or simply curious about the dynamics of managing both home and career, Roots and Roofs is your go-to podcast for heartfelt discussions and invaluable advice. Tune in and discover how these incredible women are building deep roots from the ground up while nurturing their families under the same roof. Welcome back, everyone, to Roots and Roofs. I have a super special guest with me here today. This is Emily Dixon. She actually owns her own business and was two of my kids' ISR instructors. So we'll talk a little bit about what that is. And Emily, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, kind of tell everybody what you do, and please explain what ISR is, because I'm sure there's some people that don't know.
For sure. My name is Emily Dixon, and I have been married for 15 years. We have 4 kids, 13 down to 6, and it's my whole world. Family life is the best life is kind of one of my taglines. As far as business goes, I've been an ISR instructor. This will be my 8th summer teaching, which feels wild to say because it seems like it was just yesterday when I was still very green and learning, and now it's very much a part of my life. ISR is Infant Swimming Resource, and we teach babies how to self-rescue as a line of defense against drowning. So starting as young as 6 months all the way up to 6 years old is where I teach those young kids because they can learn, they can be taught. It just needs to be in a very controlled, consistent environment. And then they can self-rescue if disaster were to happen. And if not, which we pray not, it just sets them up for a phenomenal life of swimming. Swimming is a life skill. So
yes, yeah. Absolutely. And I can obviously attest to my 2 younger kids going through your program. And Scout and Tessa are both little fishes. So it absolutely works. And I know that it gives me a little peace of mind having our own pool at home, that if disaster were to happen, that they hopefully have the skills and the knowledge to be able to rescue themselves until help can arrive. So yes,
right.
absolutely.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Well, so we're going to get right into some questions here. I am super excited to get the opportunity to chat with you, and I know everybody is going to learn a lot from our conversation today. So first question here. How do you remind yourself of your worth and unique strengths when juggling the roles of mom and teacher and entrepreneur?
I think ultimately being dialed into my own identity, right? I'm a believer, right? So God has given each of us specific identities to live out in this world. And when we know whose we are and who we are, you can operate from such a place of peace and rest, right? I know my niches, I know kind of the way I'm wired, and so it helps me to just stay in my lane, to know what are my strengths, and then maybe areas where I'm not so strong, so I need to lean on the other people in my life, right?
Sure, absolutely. So we didn't kind of talk at the beginning that you
Mm.
also homeschool your kids,
Oh,
right?
yes,
So
I do.
yeah, so kind of just tell everybody a little bit about what that looks like for your family, and then also maybe for your business a little bit.
For sure. Homeschooling has always been my goal. I'm like a long game thinker where even when my oldest was 2 years old, I was like, this is what we're going to do. So I learned as much as I could, and I am still learning. She's 13 and we're still learning every day, letting it kind of ebb and flow as the Lord leads. What does that look like in my daily life? It's a lot of time at home with my kids around me all the time, which can be draining, but also good at the same time. Um, we do a lot of our work all together in the morning. We kind of split our day up into two different chunks, morning work and then kind of lunchtime and an outside break to reset and then afternoon work. Um, and then we're done about the same time regular school kids are. There's just tons and tons of flexibility in there. Balancing that with my own business has been, it's a huge blessing, because I have so much flexibility in their school stuff and then as well as in my business. I can schedule when I'm teaching and when I'm not teaching. There have been years where I have taught swimming in the afternoons in the winter, because I can, because everybody was still pretty little. Everything we were learning was elementary, and I had a decent handle on that. Now that I have kids going into middle school, I'm scaling my swim business back a little because my growing kids have their own set of needs and they always come first. Um, and so it really helps in that regard to kind of ramp up when I can and scale back when I need to. And just know, I know one of the other questions we're going to talk about is like knowing your season, and being able
Yes.
to prioritize. So,
Yes, yes, absolutely. So let's kind of talk about that a little bit since we're moving in that direction. So, how have you come to recognize and embrace the season of life that you're in? And how does that awareness kind of shape your daily choices?
um, I think it's really, really important for us as just as human beings to be objective, to like step back out of our own worlds and look at what season of life are we in. I tend to be on the emotional side of the scale, kind of a sap, right? So I like to look at older people. I study my grandparents. I'm looking at, where I am. I have middle schoolers down to first grade. But not too long ago, I was in a season where I had teething babies, nursing babies. I had to take a stroller everywhere, and you had a diaper bag, book bag, like you brought the kitchen sink everywhere you went. And I feel like when I was in that season, it felt so overwhelming. Like this is going to be my life forever, right? And I just felt like it's never going to change.
Especially
And
when
then
you have four kids,
right,
right? Like, yeah, you feel like you're in that season forever. Yeah.
right. But then it did change, and now it's like it's been 3 years since I've like changed a diaper, other than like my nieces and nephews, but like that's no longer a part of my daily life. And all of a sudden like the season just shifted. And so I think it's really important to just observe like what's going on, and then also not comparing, because other people are in different seasons of life where my life can't look like theirs because I'm still in the very thick of raising small humans to be good humans, and that takes a lot of work.
Yes, absolutely.
So trying
Absolutely.
to be observant, of others and observant of myself. This isn't a season for me to have a spotless house. It's a
Right.
season for me to have a lived in house, like not messy, like we're not squalor, but I haven't dusted my fans in a long time. Baseboards, like this is not the season for that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I actually a few years ago, just with how busy I am with work and everything like that,
Mhm.
and also having small children, we are very fortunate that in our budget we had room to just at least get our house cleaned once a month, so
Yep.
that at least for like a few hours every month my house is pretty clean,
Yes.
but even then we don't have the cleaner come and do a deep clean, so my fans are still dirty and
Hmm.
my baseboards are not dusted, so yeah.
Right. And life still goes on, right?
Yes,
And
yes,
nobody knows. You only know because I told you. Otherwise, you
yes.
wouldn't notice.
Exactly, exactly, yes. Okay, so that actually kind of leads into one of the other questions that I had for you. This is kind of around balancing it all, right?
Hmm.
So what strategies or mindsets have helped you balance all of the things that you kind of have going on in this season of life? So, homeschooling, running a business, and just maintaining your own personal life without feeling overwhelmed. Because I know it's very easy, I think, almost in every season where we are raising humans,
Hmm.
to feel overwhelmed in some way, shape, or form.
Hmm. So my answer to this one might be a little bit backwards, but I actually hate the word balance because I feel like it's a fictional fictitious carrot out
Yeah.
and say, like, I'm never going to be balanced. My life, like, it doesn't exist. And so I lean a lot more into like, what are my priorities for this season? Because it all, like, I can't do it all. I am finite. I am one human, a flawed human too. And so it's like there isn't a way to balance it all, but I do have to take time to listen to the Lord, spend time in prayer, and ask, like, essentially, what season am I in? What are my marching orders, for lack of a better term? Like, what are my priorities right now? And then I'll focus on those areas. And then I just have to, like, let the rest of it fall to the wayside and know that there'll be times when I can pick that up, or pockets of time where I can focus and then know that that's as much time as I can give that thing, and that time will be effective. So, gosh, for example, like reading my Bible, right? There are some times where it's very consistent and I can spend time every morning. And then there's other seasons where I have sick kids or ailing family members, and it's like, it's 3 weeks since I've opened the thing and it's not any less effective in my life. But then a pocket of time, an hour will open up where it's like everybody's in bed and I'm still in a peaceful spot where it's like I can open up and just deep dive with the Lord, and that's sufficient. And that's not balanced. That wasn't
No.
balanced, but it's still perfectly applicable and everything that I needed for that time. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And I wholeheartedly agree with you. Balance is fake, right?
It's fake.
It is. Yeah.
Or like meal planning, where sometimes it looks like one thing, and then can go a week at a time, and then once I'll do a whole month at a time, and then there's 3 weeks where we eat out and we eat absolute garbage because life is just life, and
Yes.
that's not balanced. But we're living and we're moving, and I have to know the season and then give myself grace to just know, like, at the end of the day, we're okay. We're okay.
Yes. I was actually just having a very similar conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, and she has three small children, and she was just kind of talking about how um, she was feeling very guilty for some of the reactions that she had with her kids the previous night.
Hmm.
And it was mostly around the fact that her husband was working, she was, solo parenting, everybody was crying, everybody was upset, everybody was needing her while she was trying to make dinner, and they were late to, gymnastics, and then she was chasing around the baby while, the other two were doing gymnastics, and she was like, I
Hmm.
was just so overwhelmed with everything that
Yeah.
it was just it was just, to the point where I kind of blew up at everybody.
Hmm.
And I remember being that way, right? And
Hmm.
and it was kind of one of those things where it's just like, man, I really remember that, and I had to find ways to not end up being like that. And so my
Hmm.
suggestion to her was so simple. It was like, okay, if you knew all of that was going to be kind of how your night was going to go, because she knew her husband was going to be working, it was
Hmm.
like, just go get drive through or
Hmm.
stop somewhere and eat out, like
Hmm.
whatever that looks like. I was like, there's so many nights where if I know that that's what our night is going to look like, that we're just running around like crazy,
Hmm.
I'm going to just opt to go to Qdoba and get a rice bowl and get the kids a cheese quesadilla because they love it anyway, and
Hmm.
everyone will be full and happy, and I won't have to feel guilty for losing my mind later,
Right. Yep. I
No.
think, like, and we need to give ourselves so much flexibility to be the um to be responsive versus reactive, but just know, like, I'm the mom, I'm in this role, I'm gonna make the best choice possible, and all those crazy voices in my head can just shut it.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Especially
Right?
the one that says we need to have a home cooked meal because otherwise I'll feel bad about it. It's like,
Right.
yeah, some nights that just doesn't happen. So, yep.
Hmm.
Okay, so actually with kind of what we were just talking about, this does lead me into one of my other questions. So, when you feel like you're failing in one area or more of your life,
Hmm.
how do you kind of process those emotions and what helps you get back on track, especially those times where maybe it's overwhelm or mom guilt or things like
Hmm.
that?
Mm. Um, Well, I already said, like, I lean more towards the emotional end of the spectrum. So like if I feel like I'm failing and I feel like I need to cry, like I just straight up cry. And sometimes I go in my closet and just like, this is just what I need to do. And I got to let it out, because bottling it doesn't serve anybody. Um, and so there's that. Leaning on my support team, be it my husband, like, and I know there are areas where he can really support me. If I feel like, oh, I'm failing in this, I can tell him and he can speak life into that. Or if one of our kids is struggling and I feel like a failure, because that's pretty much how it works. If the child is struggling, I must be the failure instead of
Oh,
just
yes.
like, instead of a disconnect that just says, hey, that child is struggling. Huh, we should do something about that. Like it doesn't mean it's
Mhm.
on me. But he's also able to like bring life into that sometimes. And then there's other areas where if I'm like, I can't fix crunchy meals, he'll be like, I don't care. So maybe I don't go to him for that one. I might ask a girlfriend for help.
Right.
Um, and there's other areas where it's like, my jeans won't button. I'm not going to talk to him. I'm going to talk to my girlfriends and I'll be like, hey, this is
Yeah.
what we're doing that works. Or, it doesn't matter. So just leaning into your support systems. Ultimately, prayer. I will go for a walk. I will go for a run. There have been many, many times that I will go walk the dog and cry and pray and all the things while you're just out in nature, right? So you're resetting, you're doing cardio. So you got blood pumping to your brain, through your heart. Like it is amazing how much exercise can reset the mind. It's usually like the last thing you want to do if you're feeling
Yes.
crummy, but it really is a very powerful tool for resetting. And then, yeah, just pray. And I talk to God about like, honest, this is where I'm at, and then being able to listen and reaffirm what are the things that He's saying, because He's not going to tell me I'm a failure. He doesn't make
No.
failures,
Yeah,
right? So he would say,
absolutely.
who have I made you to be? What do I say about your situation, right? If we've got a child who is struggling, whether it's in the pool or in my homeschool, okay, these are your emotions. Let's deal with those. And now we're
Hmm.
going to take a step backwards and objectively look at how can we help this student, right? But sometimes as a woman, the emotions can just come up and then they overshadow and they cloud everything. So yeah,
Yes.
like I'm saying, like give yourself permission to work through the emotion part of it, let it out, and then just reset.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Yes, and also, I don't know about you, but I've really had to like work at and learn how to one let the emotions like kind of out and out of the way and then not dwell on them, right?
Yes.
That I don't know about you, but I have definitely struggled with that in the past, and it's like,
Mhm.
okay, nope, we've kind of, dealt with this, and now we need to move on and find solutions for it instead of dwelling on it. So yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yep.
Okay, so how do you stay spiritually grounded and fight for the right to pursue what God has called you to do, even when facing self-doubt or
Mhm.
guilt or any other kind of negative emotions around that?
Mhm. I've said a lot. I mean, I'm a praying person, I'm a believing person. Um, as far as like as far as practic practically something that I do, we do go to church regularly, and are involved in a couple different other ministry things regularly. Um, Usually once a week, I will take time, carve out time, about an hour, and spend solo time worshiping and just soaking with the Lord. And that's something I didn't grow up doing, but in my adult life, someone else encouraged me to just really do that. And so that has been very helpful for me to like get grounded, get truth, get some solidity. Gives me a space to let those emotions out because it's just me and the Lord. And then I can cycle through any number of worship songs that are speaking to me at that time. Um, to just kind of reset, and then just being willing to stay humble before the Lord. So like, because I don't know, in our Insta world, we can all kind of think we're pretty sweet sometimes. And I have found like, maybe that doesn't always bring the best fruit in my life. I need to just ask the Lord, like, who have you made me to be? And then I'm going to walk that out to the best of my ability, and letting him be the guide of where he wants me to go. Um, and just being obedient and loving him, because there's so many people he puts across my path in different homeschool groups, different church groups, all of my swim families, like you've been there, like we are a family. I love
Yeah.
them. I love your two young kids and I want to watch them grow and I want to see what God does with their life. Like it's not just, you're my student and I never want to see you again. It's like I really care about these kids and their families and people who are going through hard things. And he just gives you so many different opportunities and open doors that will come that I didn't plan for that. I didn't make that happen. I didn't grit and grunt for that. He just, because he loves me, opens these doors and says, "Here, go be who you are right there because I need what you have," right? They don't need an accountant. They need somebody lovely and bubbly and caring. Because if they needed an accountant, they wouldn't call me.
Yes, for sure, for sure. Yes, that's so true. I feel like in my own life, when I have peace and harmony and maybe the word balance, even though we've decided that's, fake, it is because I'm listening to God and trying to follow out what I think he, has called me to do. But when
Hmm.
I'm resisting that, I feel like that's
Hmm.
when I have a lot of discourse and maybe some problems in my life. So yeah,
Yes.
absolutely, absolutely. I love your idea of trying to spend an hour a week, just kind of in reflection and things like that. I might have to steal that idea because
Hmm. Do it.
that's a really good one. I love that. Okay, so how do you model and teach your children about knowing their value, and serving others and maybe not necessarily finding balance, but trying their best to kind of find some harmony in their life?
I live it because again, like homeschooling, my children are around me all the time. My kids know me so crazy well that sometimes it's scary. Um, but I'm living it constantly, like learning how to do the things, how I carry myself, how I speak to them, how I respond to different circumstances, albeit often I'm blundering, right? But I've also learned honesty with them, being humble with them. So your mom friend that you mentioned that just had a rough night with her three littles, like sometimes it happens. And as
Yeah.
moms, we just have to say, like, I was really overwhelmed. I shouldn't have responded like that. And I'm sorry. Will you
Hmm.
forgive me? And then it's done and we move on. And it might happen again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you apologize and rewrite, like, and you're just rewriting all of those things.
Yeah.
Um, Gosh, I absolutely you just live it and you talk to your kids, we teach them, they're listening to the things we say, but our kids will become what we are, not what
Yeah.
we say, which is
Yep.
like horribly scary.
Yes, right?
Sometimes,
Yeah,
I'm like,
right. Yes.
I want you to do all the things right. Don't do it like I'm doing it. But then it just
Hmm.
gives me opportunity to be authentic, to
Right.
live in front of them. Especially as like I have two girls that are in middle school right now. They're very observant. They're learning their emotional world. There are days when I am sad and
Mhm.
my oldest will come out, "Mom, your eyes aren't sparkling. Are you okay?" And I can't just tell her, I can't
Mm.
lie to her, like girl
No.
can read me. And so I have to be like, yeah, there's some stuff on my heart that I'm just processing today.
Mm.
I'm fine. Everything's okay. Like your world is secure, but I have
Yeah,
some stuff that's hurting my heart. And sometimes I can tell them, like, it's because grandpa is sick and I am sad,
sure.
or, this, that, or the other that's happening. Um, and it just lets them know like it's okay to process. It's okay to not have it all together. It's okay if you don't feel balanced. It's great when we do.
Yeah.
And they
Yes.
can feel that, like, all right, everybody's flowing today. Today's a good day. And then other days,
Mhm.
today is a bad day. Like,
Yeah.
we
And
get
it's
to have
okay.
all kinds of
Tomorrow
days.
will be a new day. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I love that you said that. I just recently went to a work conference and the speaker, we had the opportunity to ask him some questions. And one of the questions that I had the opportunity to ask was around, if you feel like you made mistakes as a parent, how do you go back and maybe kind of like rectify some of that with your children, right? And
Mhm.
his answer, it's like I kind of already knew it, but to hear it out loud was just like, just go and apologize to him, right? And
Mhm.
acknowledge it. But here's the funny part. I went and did this with my two older children, and had
Mhm.
this conversation after I got back from this conference. And my two older ones were like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, okay, so sometimes we kind of get in our own head and in our own way, and think that maybe we're making mistakes that our kids don't even sometimes recognize, right?
Right. Yes. I,
Or
I,
it was a blip on the radar for them, but
mhm.
it felt monumental to you, you know?
Yes, 100%. So I went through something very similar recently with my 11-year-old, where like brought up this deep thing, and she's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm like, oh, whoops. Okay, cool. Well, just so you know, I'm here if you ever want to talk about something.
Right?
And so I
Yes,
think
I know.
us being willing to be humble, apologize, and then be available
Yeah.
are like the biggest things we can give them, because then whatever is a thing, they'll bring it to us. Because I've had the flip
Yes.
side with my other daughter, where something that I thought was trivial was a huge deal to her. And so when it
Sure.
finally came out, I'm like, oh, I had no idea. I am so sorry. I didn't know that that hurt you that deeply. Will you forgive me? And then let's move on, But like,
Yes.
so I think it's important, like you said, just apologize to our kids when we mess up. Be real, be authentic with them. Don't give them the reins to run the house.
No,
Not
no,
That's not healthy.
no.
But being authentic is really important. And then we're raising authentic humans that can say, like,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I really messed up. Because sometimes, and I feel like your boys are teenagers, my
Yep.
girls are in middle school. It's crazy time of life, crazy
It
town.
is.
And sometimes they are acting just off the charts. But here's this thing: they don't even know. They are
No,
not in control. They don't have
no.
a full brain, like
Yes.
all those things. And so, do I want them to come back and apologize sometimes? Absolutely. Do they always? No, because they don't
No.
even know that they're being crazy town. But sometimes they do. And then when it
Yes.
comes, I'm like, I know that that's genuine, that's authentic. And as you grow into your adult life, like you are not going to be you're not going to be somebody who's fake. You're going to know,
Yes.
like, crap, I blew it. I'm sorry. Here we go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Totally agree. Um, that Yeah, that is so true. And kind of like what you said about them coming to you then when they really do have things that they need,
Hmm.
we just had this happen last week with one of our children that my husband and I were talking about it later on, and he was like, I would have never brought that to my parents' attention. Not because he didn't grow up in a loving home or something like that,
Hmm.
right? But it was just we've tried our best to make sure that we are making ourselves available to them emotionally, and so
Right.
then when something emotional does come up, like
Hmm.
they just have the opportunity to have that conversation with us, and it was like, man, okay, we maybe might be doing a few things right if
Yes.
that kid is coming to us with those things. So yeah.
Sure. And something else I was thinking about earlier as I was thinking about our conversation today is like, um, when we're struggling with self-doubt, okay, so like what you just described to me was an absolute win. Okay. It's
Yeah.
not a reason for you to puff up and be prideful, but when you're attacking yourself or feeling attacked, like I'm a terrible parent, I'm a horrible thing, you have a scoreboard, like that was a win. Count the
Yeah.
win, and so it's like it's on both hands. You need to hold those things, and like, sure, hang on to that moment. That was a great moment, because there'll be other times where you're like, I am failing, this is horrible, blah blah blah. It's like, no, no, that's not true.
Yep.
Objectively, I can say this was a good thing, this was a great area where we were winning. I'm going to
Yep.
plant my anchor over here and know that
Yes.
even if we're in a struggle spot right now, this is where the real life is. This is a true reflection of what we're doing.
Yes, absolutely. Agreed. Yes. Yeah, totally agree with you.
So even
Um,
like, and I guess that not to interrupt, but that
yeah,
overflows into our businesses too, right? If you're
right.
struggling in real estate, you're going to say, but actually, I've sold X number of houses already, right? If I'm struggling with a swim student, which does happen,
Yeah.
I can think I'm the worst instructor in the world. And I go home and my husband is like, girl, every single one of them floats. I don't know why you're upset right now. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. Like,
You're right. Yeah.
okay, I do know what I'm doing.
Yes.
I'm just
Yes.
stuck in this small space. right?
Yes,
And so the
absolutely.
same is true for our parenting or our marriages because they go through hills and valleys, right? Where it's
Mm-hmm.
like we are in a valley right now, but ultimately we're committed, right? We're in a covenant
Yes.
relationship. Like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yes, exactly,
Work,
exactly.
work through the bathwater, but don't throw it all away.
Or the I don't know, I'm gonna probably butcher the same, but it's kind of like, if you have one, bad 10 minutes of the day, are you gonna just
Mhm.
throw the whole rest of your day away, right? Like how many
Exactly.
more minutes do you have in the day to either
Hmm.
turn things around or just go have a great day, right? Don't
Right.
let one small thing ruin the whole rest of it. So,
Right. Or it's like human nature is that we want to analyze what was wrong or what was difficult. And it's like 10% of an event could go poorly and needs
mhm.
to be improved. And so that's what we talk about when it's like 90% of our event was phenomenal, like,
Yes.
and we don't want to get puffed up in pride, but we do need to like keep that scoreboard is not even. It doesn't play fair. So
Yes,
just be
absolutely.
mindful, like count your wins. That's okay.
Yes. I love that. Count your wins. Yes, I love that. Okay, so let's just kind of we can kind of wrap things up here.
Hmm.
I have absolutely loved talking to you about this, but let's kind of just go through one more question here. So how has your definition of success evolved over the years, and how do you measure progress in the various roles that you have as, a homeschool teacher and a business owner and a mother and a wife and all those things?
Mm, Um, okay, so my definition of success, this is going to sound really sappy, but ultimately it's like what things are eternal, right?
Yeah,
What actually matters. Um, Only because I think life just genuinely will teach us those things. I like driving a nice car, but if I didn't have my nice car, I would drive whatever got me from A to B, and that would be just fine, right?
sure.
Um, say I feel successful in my life because I have the things that I dreamt about. And those aren't physical things, right? It's a
Sure.
loving marriage, it's wonderful children. I love owning my own business and having that opportunity to serve the community and serve the things that are around me. But I also know myself in that I'm more of a free spirit, right? I hate keeping track of things, right? I don't like Excel. I'm not a data girl. That stuff like boring. I would rather go hiking and let's just see
Sure.
what happens. And so like to define my success, it doesn't, I'm not a metrics type of a person, and that's okay. And
Yeah.
like being able to be in a space where it says like I can't tell you how many students I taught last year. I can just tell you that they all float.
Right.
I can't tell you exactly where each of my children is on the academic rosters. I can tell you that they're reading, they're learning, they're loving life, they've got great character, they're wonderful people.
Yes.
So those are the things that matter to me, and that fits my vein. And so that's where it's like know yourself, and then be comfortable being who you are, right? I have other friends that I need to help balance my life that are the numbers people, and they can tell you how many books they checked out from the library last year, and I'm like, I'm just lucky I returned them all. I don't know how many we checked out. And
Yeah.
neither is good or bad, it's just that we're different, and
Right.
and so that's good.
Absolutely. I love
So,
that. I love that. I am the numbers person, right?
see, that's
So
why we're friends, because I need
yes.
people like you in my life.
Yes, exactly. And it's so funny. If I really think about it, like my husband included, I tend to surround myself with people who are the complete opposite of me. So
Right.
yeah, because you balance me out. So there you go.
Exactly. And I need people like you because we didn't like they asked me to plan events. I've got
Mhm.
themes, I've got decor, I've got everything, this
Yeah.
awesome invitation. And somebody like you would be like, Emily, you didn't put the date on. I'm like, oh, is that important?
Yeah. And the time, right? Yeah.
Right.
It's like, and how many people are we inviting? Like, what's the number?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you so much for coming on
Yes.
here to
Thank
talk
you
to
for
me
having
today.
me.
Yes, this has been a wonderful conversation, and I can't wait for people to get to listen to this. And thank you so much for sharing your spiritual journey and
Mhm.
your, kind of personal relationship with God, with
Yeah.
us a little bit. I know that that is so important to so many of my listeners. So thank you so much. And yeah, until next time, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Roots and Roofs podcast today. If you loved today's episode, please let me know. I love hearing from you on Instagram and Facebook, so feel free to send me a DM or tag me in your stories so I can share it too. If you're looking for more information about today's topic, please visit my website, mahoganyacres.com, and all of the information that is listed in the show notes below. Until next time.